Hey folks, today I'm going to be reacting to You Have 24 Hours Before Jail. If you like what you see, please hit like or subscribe.
Brought to you by the Every Dollar app. Start budgeting for free today.
So, I'm a single dad struggling to put food on the table for my kids.
Mm,
I don't have any credit card debt. I do
good.
have a auto loan that I'm majorly upside down on. I've got about $4,000 in medical debt. And probably the most embarrassing one is I haven't filed any taxes in the past. This coming season will be 3 years. I just have not had the money to file them.
Ooh, that's not a good spot. This could already be the implication for going to jail, which is obviously this individual gave up potentially some personal information here and is highlighting the fact that they haven't filed for taxes. That's not usually how it works. I'm not sure if something else will be revealed over the course of this call. But something to keep in mind is obviously you do need to be paying your taxes. You can go to jail for this, but it's not the first option. Um, Technically, even like the IRS could like raid you or your house to basically secure you or assets for these things, but that's not how it generally works unless you've been doing something really crazy for a while. Most of the time, you'll get notices, contacts, things like that to figure out what to do about it. And you can also be proactive about the situation, which is, I think that there are payment plans, if I'm not mistaken, for IRS and things like that. And so you can work through scenarios. But I'd highly recommend if you're in a scenario like this where you're years behind on paying your taxes, you likely should probably seek maybe both legal and financial advice, as they should be able to help work with you through the scenario. Potentially finding a financial advisor first. They likely have been through scenarios like this. And if legal advice is required, they might be able to help support you in that. Just be sure to get somebody who is fiduciary, somebody that has your best interest in mind, and hopefully has some experience under their belt. But this is definitely not a good thing to be doing. Unfortunately, it is something that many folks do perform, um, and is definitely not recommended.
And I'm tired of living paycheck to paycheck. Ends are not meeting. I make about $80,000 a year. I should not be this broke.
So that's an odd scenario. The individual highlighted making 80,000, so that's not what I was expecting out of an individual in this scenario. Again, I think if I'm recalling the numbers correctly, I think the average individual in America makes about 50,000, and I think household the average is about 60 to 70,000 if I'm recalling correctly. And so 80,000 definitely puts you in a pretty reasonable income bracket in America. It could be based off of how high the cost of living is where you are, but certainly I think many folks would consider 80,000 a year a healthy income and something that you could make ends meet with if you are being mindful of your expenses and other things. So curious also to see what else is shared.
I need some help.
Okay. When were you divorced?
Um, about 6 years ago.
Okay. And you've never really taken control of your whole life since then. It's all kind of just happened to you.
Yeah, I've never been taught how to manage finances. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, but what you
Um,
described to me was you've been coasting.
yes, just
Today, you took a step to try to
zero.
figure out how to fix it, but you've been coasting.
Yes, $0 in the bank before every paycheck.
Yeah, and $80,000, you ought to have some money, shouldn't you? Yeah, you should.
Yes,
Are
yes.
you self-employed?
I don't know. I work as a 1099 contractor.
Yeah, okay. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, the first thing we do is we get on a written game plan called a budget, and we make every dollar that comes in behave. And starting this month, you're going to set aside 25% of every dollar that comes in to pay your taxes. So if you get $1,000 check, you're going to take $250 and put it in a savings account to pay your quarterly estimates on your taxes.
So key distinction here. So this individual highlighted that basically they're a contractor. And so depending on your familiarity and your work background, you might not be familiar with this type of work. But if you're like a salaried employee or even an hourly employee where you basically go to an employer and you are officially an employee of that business, they will pay taxes on your behalf as part of like your paycheck. So they will just reduce it and then hand you the remaining paycheck. If you are a contractor or if you're self-employed and you have these contracts, the business that you're working with will send you the full amount. And so taxes are not reduced by that. And this is definitely a common case where people get into trouble, which is they start their own business. Maybe they're contractors, they're self-employed for whatever reason. And because somebody isn't proactively reducing these taxes for them, they either don't realize or don't actively choose to reduce their income and stow away some of that income for taxes. So basically, Dave's advice here is really solid, which is to basically, as the money comes in, take 25% and push it over to a savings for you to then pay to the IRS. This is the expectation if you're in this scenario. That's not an optional thing that you can do. And so this is where some people fall behind, is either they don't put aside money at all or they're not putting aside enough. I think 25 seems to be a very reasonable percentage, but this could vary individual to individual and based off of your state. So different states have different tax requirements, so you should definitely seek a financial advisor if you're unsure about your own situation, how much you should be putting aside for it. But generally speaking, most people would be paying like an effective tax rate of like 25 to like 35%, depending on your income. And again, effective tax rate is basically the averaged tax rate that you have. So we all have tax brackets in the US. So this means the more money you make, the higher the tax is. And effective tax rate is basically like if you just took the total amount of taxes you paid on the total amount of income you had and divided those, that would just be your average tax rate. And that's the effective tax rate here. So most people have a 20 to 30% effective tax rate in America if you make, especially in that 50 plus K range. So I think that's reasonable advice.
And then you're going to do a budget with the remaining $750 per thousand. Follow me?
Okay.
You're going to make every dollar behave, and you're going to withhold on yourself because you have no money in the bank to pay 3 years' worth of taxes. This is a problem.
Right.
And I'm guessing you're going to have somewhere around $60,000, $80,000 in taxes on these 3 years. You've been making 80 a year of those 3 years?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you probably got, 60 grand going to be owed plus penalties.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so he didn't necessarily explain that all too much, but penalties are also where if you're behind on your taxes, basically the IRS will effectively count it as a loan for you. So same thing like with a credit card or something like that. If you borrow the money and then you don't pay them back, they'll start charging interest. And that's what the IRS does too. So effectively those penalties are, there might also be some fees associated with if they have to chase after you to get that money. But at a minimum, if you're not paying your taxes, basically they are accruing interest. And that means even if this individual had to have paid 50 or 60K over the last 3 years, that could increase and maybe they will be required to pay 70, 80K to make up for the lost time and the lost revenue to the IRS.
So now, here, you have a tremendous responsibility as a single dad. That people do not get put in jail in America for not paying their taxes. They do get put in jail for not filing them. So you have 24 hours, my friend, to get at RamseySolutions.com and click on Tax ELP, Endorsed Local Provider, for someone in your area to sit down and you get those taxes filed. I don't want you led away in bracelets that connect. I hope I'm scaring you. 2,571 people went to jail last year for failure to file. It is a law. It's a criminal law. Not paying is different. You can get away with not paying. You can't get away with not filing. Get your freaking taxes filed now. And then get on a budget, and we'll walk you through the rest of this. Hang on. We'll also send you a copy of Total Money Makeover and help you with the money part of this. You got to get on this, buddy. Create your free every dollar budget today, the simplest way to budget for your life.
Thank you for watching. I will see you around.